Joining me now are two voices to help us unpack the enduring legacy of Rerum Novarum, why it still matters 135 years later, and its influence on Pope Leo XIV's pontificate today. Dr. Michael Pakaluk is a political economy professor at the Catholic University of America and a professor with the Pontifical Academy of St. Thomas Aquinas. A philosopher and author, Dr. Pakaluk is a leading Catholic thinker on economics, virtue, and the Church's social teaching tradition, all of which are important tenets in Rerum Novarum. And Deacon Omar Gutiérrez is a permanent deacon in the Archdiocese of Omaha, Nebraska, as well as the director of the Society for the Propagation of the Faith in the Archdiocese of Omaha. Deacon Gutiérrez is a highly sought-out Catholic speaker, including on this topic of Rerum Novarum. Thank you both for being here on this big anniversary. Deacon, I want to start with you. Can you summarize the main message of Rerum Novarum and its significance when it comes to shaping Catholic social teaching today? I mean, how radical was it at the time, and how important does this document remain for the life of the Church today?
It was very radical for the time. The responses to it were very emotional from some because it was the first foray into addressing this modern world in this specific way that Pope Leo kind of started, and that many popes since then have continued. Almost every single pope since Pope Leo XIII have added to the social teaching, and with this understanding that the Church has a role in the modern world to help guide Catholics how to respond to the revolutions that are occurring in our time. So from that perspective, it was radical, and it has continued to this very day, so that Pope Francis had two, Pope Benedict XVI talked about it all the time. It's still very much relevant to our day.
Michael, what, in your opinion, are some misconceptions surrounding Rerum Novarum today, and what is important context surrounding its 1891 release that we need to keep in mind as we read through it now?
Well, I think just about everything that people think about it is mistaken. So that's the first thing I would do. I'd say go and read the document, because it's really rich and it's profound, and you'll learn a lot from it. So for example, people say that it established unions or supported unions, but what Leo XIII envisioned was voluntary associations of Catholic workers to support them in their faith. And so he had no patience for secular workers' unions. That's one misconception. Or the living wage. Living wage was the idea that employers were tending to pay men just enough to keep themselves alive as individuals. So they weren't receiving a wage that would be adequate to support their wife and children. So the idea of a living wage is that women and children wouldn't have to work outside the house because the head of the household would be paid enough to support an entire household. Now, this needs to be recreated somehow in tax law, because employees cannot, according to current law, pay somebody more if he has dependents than somebody who has no dependents. And it's not at all the same as a minimum wage.
That's fascinating. Deacon, I see you nodding your head along, so if you have anything more to add, please do. But I do want to ask you as well, Deacon. Rerum Novarum states no practical solution of this question will be found apart from the intervention of religion and of the Church when it comes to, again, this topic of labor conditions. So, Deacon, can you speak to that? What is the role of the Church in intervening and engaging on these very types of issues?
It's, first of all, noting, as the good doctor said, that this is not just a question of the material well-being, the physical well-being of peoples, but of their spiritual well-being. The responsibility, Pope Leo XIII in Rerum Novarum talks about responsibilities of employers. One of those responsibilities is for the spiritual well-being of his employees, that they have the time to worship, and that they have the freedom to do so. This sense of this integration between the material and the spiritual, which is so much a part of Pope Leo's document, it's what's then is brought up time and time again with the various popes as we talk about the progress of people's integrated human development, et cetera.
Wow, so every employer, secular included, has this, like you were saying, this spiritual responsibility.
Exactly right.
But I think it's important to understand that by the Church, Pope Leo doesn't mean the clerics or the hierarchy. He means the full body of the Church. And an entire quarter of the encyclical is addressed to civil society and what people can do in civil society. And he's very wary of the state Leo XIII was extremely wary of state power, and he thought it would be a huge mistake for the state to step in here and kind of claim additional power to solve these problems.
And Michael, I want to talk about applying it to today. So what does Rerum Novarum still have to teach young Catholics, for example, who are navigating the modern economic pressures and today's cultural instability? How can we apply the teachings of Rerum Novarum to modern day life?
Well, I think, first of all, it's part of becoming educated as a Catholic citizen and Catholic participant in what is, frankly, a commercial society, which we have in the United States. So, and above all, it's not a matter of kind of memorizing certain lines or rules. It's a matter of incorporating it. So I do think that what we teach in our school is that students should be reading this almost prayerfully. I think the deacon would agree, and kind of engage in a kind of examination of conscience and thinking carefully. No, I think the immediate upshot is we're certainly training a lot of people who are going to go into management or start companies. So there's a great degree of sensitivity to the worker in Rerum Novarum. Especially, you could sum it up in the golden rule: just do unto others as you would have done unto you. And so this is a very important part of educating young persons in a business school environment, which is what I'm in.
And would you both say, I mean, is this ultimate message? It's about upholding the dignity of the laborer, but ultimately work has to serve the family. Is that a correct takeaway?
Yeah, that's the central cell of society is the family. That's one of the great points that's being made. It's not the individual so much as the family, because when the next Pope Pius XI, who adds to the social teaching, when he talks about this term social justice, which is used so much and which is coined by him in that document, it's the first time the church uses that phrase. The idea is there precisely that we're supporting the family, that we all have a joint responsibility to do that. And the only other thing I'll add to that is the sense of discernment, right? That this is a spiritual project. Living the social teaching is a spiritual project as well as an economic and a political one, so that we're noticing, as in our communion with the Holy Spirit and the Trinity, whether we're an employer or an employee, because there are responsibilities for employees too, we're noticing where the Holy Spirit is guiding us to love better in the context of our workplace.
I love that reminder of discernment, especially applying it to today, because the workplace looks so different than it did in 1891. I like both of your thoughts on this, and just to reflect on what are some revolutionary changes of today that you expect and maybe hope that Pope Leo XIV will tackle in his highly anticipated first encyclical. Michael, I'll start with you.
Well, I do think that the thing he should be tackling is what I would call sterile sex. And that's the main problem in our society. And I'm afraid that it looks like it's not really that important in comparison with this issue related to demographic decline and the fall of the family and divorce and so on. But I think that there is a strong analogy of certain thing, but it's not AI. The Rerum Novarum was concerned about the family being broken up and reached into by the employer. And so that no longer were families gathering together in their house, but they had to be on the shop floor at all times. And they didn't have time, as Deacon said, no time for worship, no time for leisure, no time for education. And everybody in the household was actually directly dependent upon an employer in one of these workhouses. And the analog to this today, and I wrote a Catholic think piece on this, is actually what's called surveillance capitalism, where through devices, big companies are gaining the attention of children and everyone in a household. So you walk into a modern household, everybody's on a different device in a different part of the house, and they're actually directly in contact with influencers and with people trying to sell them things and people trying to keep them addicted. And this is the analog to the employer pulling the family out of the household and onto the shop floor.
Wow, that separation and isolation. Deacon, last word goes to you. What are you hoping to see Pope Leo XIV tackle?
Yeah, the only thing I would add to what the good doctor said, which I agree with entirely, is maybe more specifically the role of social media and all that. Pope Francis addressed this as a little bit in Fratelli Tutti, but I'd like, since there's more information now we have through social science, the effect that this is having on adolescents and so therefore the family, and then the way AI is helping add to that problem.
Professor, Deacon, thank you both so much. Grateful to have you both. Thank you.